All right, I'm not sure how quick or not quick this video is going to be, but I'm going to try to answer a few questions that Colleen West 2000 is asking me about a few things. Like, so am I trying to hide the make or model of my sailboat? Obviously not. I've been living on a Bavaria 40 2013 that I purchased brand new in 2013. I've been living on it pretty much full time with a few breaks. You know, sometimes I go back home in Montreal, Canada. But other than that, like I've been living on this boat for 10 years. I have about 55,000 miles offshore of experience sailing and running this boat. And the motor and transmission have 3,400 hours on it. So that's kind of my background with this boat. Now, I've been sailing a long time. Like my parents had a sailboat when I was a kid, so I learned very young. And I kept sailing from like windsurfers to high performance catamaran to chartering some boats here and there on Lake Champlain at first. And eventually in 2013, I purchased this boat and I've been living on it ever since. So you're asking me, I keep reading that a Saildrive is a terrible idea for a blue water boat. Is that true? Why would you purchase a boat, whatever make or model it is, with that feature? So a Saildrive versus a shaft drive is basically the argument here, because that's the two technology that you can possibly have. What I have here is a Saildrive. I've been sailing this offshore. I'm in the middle of the Pacific, crossing the ITCZ right now, and it's a Saildrive boat. I don't see a Saildrive as a handicap to a living aboard, traveling sailboat in any way, shape, or form. You have to understand that the yachting and maritime world is very, very conservative in nature for good reasons. Like the people that have this conservative mindset thinking about boating, I feel like are correct, because you always prefer an old technology, however imperfect it is, that works, that is proven, that has a track record, that people know how to manage, that is supportable in remote area. All of that makes the old tech in yachting a lot of time a very solid option. And now when something new happened, like you go from a shaft drive, which was the standard back in the 80s and 90s and 2000, and now like late 2000, early 2010, you come around where everybody's gonna have a Saildrive now. A lot of people in the yachting world are suspicious of that and have reservations towards that, because we have an old technology that drips a little bit of water, and then you put a driftless seal in it and it does better, and you just go like, why do we need a Saildrive? I think the reason why everybody went to like all the newer manufacturer under 100 horsepower. Like if you have a motor above 100 horsepower, the way I understand it is Saildrives are not appropriate, and they don't have Saildrives that are designed for that amount of power. So it's 100 and less. And I feel the reason for that is the Saildrive is inherently more efficient than a shaft drive. The shaft drive will always have like an angle, so it's pushing water down, and so that water that's pushed down is trying to push the boat up, which it will never do because the boat's never going to get out of the water with that prop wash. Is kind of energy lost to a point. I can't tell you exactly the engineering data on that, but that angle is not positive. So if you have a Saildrive that pushes the prop wash in an horizontal manner, now you have something more direct, and the thrust is more aligned to wherever you want to push the boat, and you don't have that waste of energy. So it makes the whole system more efficient in many ways. And that's why everybody's going to Saildrive. Now, why would it be a bad idea for a blue water boat? Well, a Saildrive, basically, your transmission comes through the bottom of your hull. So when you think about that, you have like about that big of a hole in your boat that's covered with a big rubber seal. Now that big rubber seal is inside the hull and it's well protected, but should something upset that seal or knock off the transmission, you might end up with that big water hole that you cannot easily plug with normal plugs or anything like that. So obviously that becomes a critical system to maintain on a Saildrive boat. The good news is it sits just about 3 feet, 3 feet and a half behind the keel. So for somebody something to come and knock your Saildrive off, like it would have to basically go through your keel first, which at that point you're having a bad day, no matter if you have a shaft drive or a Saildrive. unless something comes from the side. But then if it comes from the side and it's going to hit your Saildrive, it's going to hit the hull first. And if it's strong enough to cut your Saildrive away or break it in some way, it's going to create that gigantic hole of water. I mean, it's going to do a lot of damage to your hull also, which again, you're in a bad day. So I don't think that, you know, if you're going to pick a boat, you don't need to worry whether it's a Saildrive or a shaft drive. You just need to worry that whatever you have on your boat is well maintained, is what I would say. Like, make sure that the maintenance has been done. The seal has to be changed every 7 years. You got to check that. Or that's what Volvo says in their book. If Yanmar has got another spec, then it's something else for Yanmar. I don't know the Yanmar spec. I just know for my Volvo of my vintage, the seal needs to be changed every 7 years. If it's not done, technically your boat is not in maintenance. So you got to watch that if you're going to buy a Saildrive. But it's no different than watching that your cutlass bearing and your shaft seal on a shaft unit is in good working order. And a good surveyor is going to be able to verify that and make sure that that's the case for you. So that's that. I mean, I'm at 3,400 hours on my Saildrive. That code 0 is acting up. It's not so bad now, but I might have to do something. 3,400 hours on mine. I have no issues with it. I just change the oil every 200 hours, like it says. You do the proper maintenance on it, and it works fine. I mean, it's going to need some tuning. It's going to need some adjustment. One other thing I'll say is, I was in San Diego in 2019, and over there at the Volvo dealership there, the Volvo Panta service center, it's called Admiralty Marine, the guy I was dealing with, and he had exactly the same transmission as mine sitting on a shelf. He was selling that as a refurbished for $2,000. So, I mean, $2,000 for a brand new, well, not brand new, a refurbished in good working order transmission. In the boating world, that has to be within your you gotta say it's within your I don't care money. And if it's not, if $2,000 is not an I don't care money for you, you're not buying an HR53, I hope, because there's a lot more bills coming with that boat than $2,000. So that's that for the Saildrive versus shaft drive, as far as my understanding is. And that's my understanding. I don't take that as an engineering advice, because I'm not an engineer and I don't have engineering data on none of that. It's just my experience and what I see out there. Nobody I know with Saildrives have problems like their boat are having problems or anything like that. Now, one thing I forgot is the bottom end part of the Saildrive has seal in it, and those seals I would recommend that you change. If you have a Saildrive boat, you should change those seals every year. Every time you do a haul out, you should pull that bottom part of the transmission apart and change those O-rings and those seals that go on the shaft. That I feel is important, because when you don't do it, then those seals tends to wear off, and eventually you get seawater in your transmission. You lose your oil, and then, you know, better not use that transmission until you fix that up, and better fix it quick, because if not, things are going to start corroding in there. So I'd say, like, that's the consideration for a Saildrive. Like, if you're gonna haul it out, you're changing those bottom end seals. So that's Saildrive versus shaft drive. Really a non-issue. Both have pluses and minuses. Both have maintenances involved with them. Just do the proper maintenance. Keep your boat in good working order. You'll have no problem with either system, is what I think. The Hallbergh-Rassy versus Bavaria is a more complex question. It's a question that I've been struggling for 10 years. Because the story on this is, I was kind of disappointed with my Bavaria when I first got it. As the years go by, I'm starting to appreciate it a bit more, because I learned the pitfalls, I learned how to operate it, I learned where my part supply is. Anything that breaks it, it has already broken before, so I know how to fix it because I've done it before. So it makes everything about the boat easier as time go by, if there's a bit of hope, if you guys are going to stay a long time on your boat. Nevertheless, I still would prefer having an Hallbergh-Rassy, and the reason for that is I would like to go everywhere in the world. You know, like, I see the Hallbergh-Rassy, and the reason why I'm saying this is, you know, I don't have a first-hand experience, don't get me wrong, I don't have a first-hand experience of sailing and living aboard an Hallbergh-Rassy, but my eyes I see my portholes. They're plastic and thin aluminum. The porthole is of the depending on which vintage of Hallbergh-Rassy will be like stainless and tempered glass. You know, like I've seen an Hallbergh-Rassy from a marina I was in 2 years ago, actually ram full speed 7 knots rammed into a fishing metal boat and suffer only cosmetic damage. There was damages to like their front furler, their anchor roller, a bit of scratch on the gel coat, some damages to the tow rail, the wood there, but none of that was structural, and the boat made it back fine to the dock. If that would have happened to my Bavaria, I would assume my Bavaria would have sank that day. So an Hallbergh-Rassy is just a much more sturdy construction. That's what you pay for. It makes it more heavy. Now I'm in light air. I'm running a code 0. I have no main out, and my boat is still doing 3 knots. I bet if you had an Hallbergh-Rassy, you probably would be motoring at this point. So the Bavaria being lighter, I mean, there's no magic. If your boat is lighter, it's going to perform better in lighter wind. But you have more fuel in the Hallbergh-Rassy to go further. So it comes down to who are you? Like what? And I mean this, like what kind of person are you? What do you like? What do you don't like? Do you like a quality thing, something that's sturdy, built forever? Or do you like something that costs less? Do you wanna go to Patagonia? Do you want to go to Alaska? Do you want to go to those remote places that are in higher latitude, where you need a boat with a more sturdy construction to just even do that safe? You know, again, don't get me wrong. When I talk about safety offshore, I'm sitting 1,500 miles away from land right now. Actually, I'll take that back. I'm 1,100 miles away from the Marquesas, so there's land here. But I'm in the middle of the Pacific, sitting on a Bavaria. The Bavaria is safe. You know, like it's safe. It's not an unsafe boat, and I wouldn't be here if I thought the boat was unsafe. Now, with any boat, no boat can be indestructible. So you're gonna have a life raft. You're gonna have an EPIRB. You're gonna have like all your safety bells and whistles that you're gonna have to add to this boat. And you don't go offshore if you don't have that. So you want all that extra kit on board to make sure that you're safe. And that's true whether you're on an Hallbergh-Rassy or a Bavaria, because any boat you're gonna have is small in the sea. You know, like you put that big Hallbergh-Rassy 53 big hunk of heavy boat, you know, you stick it in the ocean, and all of a sudden, middle of the ocean, it's a small boat. It's not a big boat. So and no boats are small are big in the ocean, and the ocean will have something that will potentially be a danger to any boat. So you're going to have your safety devices. So whether you're on an HR or a Bavaria, you have to have that. So that's, you know, it comes down to, but if you want to go high latitude and do Patagonia and Alaska and Greenland and those kinds of places, you're going to want something a bit more solid than a Bavaria, and that is an opinion of mine. Could the Bavaria survive it? Could you do it? Could you make it happen if you wanted to? Of course you could, and of course you could make it in somewhat safety if you built in enough backup in the way you did things. You could make it safe. Are you going to be more comfortable, feel more secure, and have potentially less maintenance to do on something more sturdy like an Hallbergh-Rassy? That's my supposition. And the reason why I'm suspecting that is because, you know, I see my Bavaria and I park it next to an Hallbergh-Rassy, and I start noticing like the deck cleats, the tow rails, everything about the construction of the Hallbergh-Rassy is just heavier built, more quality. Obviously, at some point, it's gonna last longer. So that's what it is. As far as half cockpit or center cockpit, I really like, for myself, I don't have that, and I've never experienced living on a boat with a center cockpit and a big half cabin. But when I look at it, I really want to have that big half cabin. Now, some people will say they prefer the half cockpit to the center cockpit, because then the V-bird is all open up front, and you have that big draft of air that connects the whole boat, and it makes for more ventilation inside the half cockpit boat compared to that back stateroom in the center cockpit. I mean, that's a fair point, but on a big HR-53, you'll have a generator, and you'll probably have an AC system on board, so that becomes like a moot point. Just let me there's nothing I can do about that. Winds and waves. So the folding transom of the Bavaria is a super nice feature. It really opens up the back end of the boat, particularly in the marinas. Like you'll be parking backwards, you drop the folding transom, and then you can come in and out of the boat really easy, and it's really fun to do that out here on the West Coast, like when I was on the West Coast of Mexico or California. But you need there's drawbacks to it. I don't know if they fixed that in newer models of Bavaria, but my vintage 2013 Bavaria has the swimming platform. To me is well, not to me. To me, it's a design mistake. They've put it too low, and what that does is that when you lower the transom, if you have any sort of a wake, and I'm talking like dinghy wake, like just a little 15 horsepower dinghy is going to go by, throw a wake, and this is going to come underneath your swing platform and just smack it, and depending on how it comes and smack it, it's going to either lift it up or it's going to come here where the hinges are and then give a good smack to your hinges. And so it's a really nice feature of the boat, but I get to use it mostly only when I'm in a marina, because a lot of time if I'm sitting in a bay, as soon as there's a little bit of a wake because there's a bunch of dinghy buzzing around or some sea-doos or something like that, I have to lift it up, because if not, I feel I'm risking breaking it. So Jeannot's and Benetto's for that, they came up with a concept of 2 years later, and their folding transom is a little tad higher, and that makes it so that, you know, at least a dinghy wake is not going to get there, and chances are like even a bit of a bigger boat is not going to catch that unless you have like really a big boat coming in with like a 4-foot wake, then that's going to get it. So I like my folding transom. I really like it. Would I sacrifice my folding transom to have like more of a permanent inside the hull sugar scoop type platform that is like built in the solidity of the hull? Yes, I would make that sacrifice, like over having the up and down thing. So in that sense, like I wouldn't feel any trapped in the HR-53. Now, big wide half cockpit over a smaller center cockpit. I will have been a month on board now. Like I'm pushing day 17 now of being on this boat. By the time I get to the Marquesas, I'll have been like 30 days on board. I'll be on land. Like I'll anchor this boat and I'll go on land. I'll go to restaurants on land. I'll enjoy the land. I'll enjoy the destination. So I don't spend much time on my boat at anchor. Like I do, but like to me, I want to get to land, you know, because I'll have been 30 days on board the boat. And then if I'm coastal cruising, again, like I'll go and I'll do like, let's say Puerto Vallarta to Barra Navidad. When I get to Barra Navidad, I want to go out there with all my friends. And as big as a cockpit you can have on a sailboat, I mean, if you're going to have a party, you can have 6 people comfortable, I feel, in my cockpit. But then again, if you're going to have supper, it's a 4-person cockpit. So now you're going to have all of your cruising friends. We're going out to restaurants. We're not sitting in anybody's cockpit, you know, like even though my 40-foot cockpit is bigger than a center cockpit Hallbergh-Rassy. So what's the conclusion of that? Well, buying a boat and choosing a boat is a very, very complex topic, because you have to adjust the boat to the purpose you're going to do it with, your finances, and your own skills. Like you got to look at who you are in terms of fixing skills, how much of a mechanics are you, like all of that comes into play when you're going to choose what boat you're going to buy. Like somebody that likes fixing stuff and wants to do it for cheap is going to love a Bavaria, like, because there's always something to fix here, and the parts are not very expensive, and it's easy to do. If you have an infinite amount of money, you know, and I'm talking like, you know, I don't know what an HR-53 goes for these days, but let's say $600,000. I hope you have $150,000 or $200,000 on top of the $600, because that boat's going to eat that $200,000 real quick when you start upgrading it, putting it to your liking, fixing stuff, or just doing the regular maintenance on it. Money goes quick on those kinds of boat, those kinds of unit, and it's not a mark of it's just the reality. Like, these things are in seawater, so when you have to do like for example, last year I had to change my standing rig. So my standing rig on my Bavaria 40 was $6,000 US. Like, if you do that on an HR 53, the boat weighs 3 times as much. Well, everything is gauged 3 times bigger or stronger, so you're going to pay an exponential amount more. And you have to do that every 10 years, the insurance will say. And if you actually look at the Selden boat book, which, I mean, my boat has a Selden rig, and the HR has a Selden rig. If you look at Selden will tell you every 20,000 miles you have to change your standing rig. So that means every 20,000 miles or 10 years, I would not be surprised if an HR is $15,000 to do a standing rig job on it. And you have to do that, because if you don't, then you may end up losing your mast. So it's a complex topic. I love talking about that. I have opinions about it. I'm fascinated by all this technology. Again, a lot of what I say, I realize are opinions. They're just based on my personal limited experience on all of these things. It's my understanding that I'm offering. Like, I wish I had like hardcore charts, engineering data, tested to destruction type deal, like, but obviously, like, they don't do that on those kinds of boat, because it'd be a very expensive proposal. That's my understanding. If you have more questions, please send them my way. I'd be happy to do another video and keep on the conversation going. Thanks for your questions.